My sister accused me of everything and almost destroyed my life, but I managed to turn it around. My name is Marina, I'm 32 years old, and I never imagined that my own family could become the greatest source of suffering in my life. I've always been practical, responsible, someone who considers the consequences before acting. I grew up watching my parents plan every detail of our lives, setting aside funds for our weddings, trying to teach us financial responsibility and independence, and always following their guidance. When I decided to marry Renato, I opted for something simple and intimate, with the money my parents set aside for me being used to buy our house. We were hopeful, happy, and I was pregnant, awaiting the arrival of our first child. I felt that life was finally falling into place as planned, that my efforts and conscious choices had paid off. But everything began to fall apart when I received the first message from Paula, my younger sister, accusing me of selfishness, saying I should have warned her about saving money and insinuating that I had intentionally hurt her. I sat on the living room floor, pregnant, with trembling hands and a racing heart. The tears flowed uncontrollably, and the mixture of shame, guilt, and fear paralyzed me. For the first time, I realized that happiness itself could be attacked by envy of someone so close, someone I loved, but who chose frustration and accusation over dialogue and accountability. At that moment, I began to reflect on Paula's journey. Always impulsive, vain, and proud, she believed that showing off would bring respect and status, even if it meant spending the entire trust fund our parents had so carefully saved. Her handmade handbag and shoe business wasn't doing well, and her unambitious husband, Eduardo, depended solely on her financially, dreaming of internet projects and unrealistic dreams without taking anything seriously. She didn't take responsibility for her choices and the weight of her. Frustration fell on me, as if I were to blame for her situation. I felt anger, frustration, and fear that the tension would escalate. Every sacrifice I made, every conscious decision to ensure our safety and my baby's future, felt disregarded and ignored. I couldn't allow the life we'd worked so hard to build to be eroded by unfair accusations. For the first time, I felt the need to make firm decisions, set clear boundaries, and protect my emotional health without blaming myself. I sat for hours, remembering our childhood, the petty rivalries that always existed, the constant comparisons, and the exaggerated pride she cultivated. I felt a mixture of pain and anger, but also a clear realization that I could no longer be emotionally manipulated. I grabbed a notebook and began writing down everything I felt: fear, anger, sadness, frustration, but also hope, strength, and clarity. Writing was an immediate relief. It helped me separate feelings from facts and realize that not all the pain and frustration were mine to carry. There, in that moment, I realized that my overcoming would begin with small but conscious choices: taking a deep breath, setting boundaries, protecting my baby and my marriage, without giving in to my sister's pressure. For the first time, I saw a way through that crisis without drowning in guilt and despair. My mother, Helena, called that night, worried and scared, saying that Paula was desperate, crying, and demanding that I fix the situation. I felt a crushing weight on my shoulders. My mother had always valued responsibility and independence, but worrying about Paula made her reinforce the drama and push me toward a guilt that wasn't mine. I was shaking, feeling alone, exhausted, but I realized something important. I needed to set firm, clear boundaries. I could no longer allow myself to be manipulated. For the first time, I felt that protecting my peace and that of my baby was more important than trying to please or fix someone else's life. It was that night, as I was writing, that I realized the beginning of the transformation. For the first time in months, I felt like I didn't need to carry guilt that wasn't mine, that I didn't need to apologize for being responsible, for having planned my life safely, ensuring my baby's future. Taking a deep breath brought me relief and an unprecedented sense of freedom. I knew the path would be difficult, that there would be confrontations, tears, and moments of intense emotional pressure. But for the first time, I felt I could get through it all without destroying myself. I decided then and there, my peace and my babies would be a priority, above any manipulation or family drama. For the first time, I felt like I was beginning to win, even amidst the chaos. I woke up the next day with puffy eyes from crying, but with a strange sense of clarity I'd never felt before. I looked in the mirror and, for the first time, spoke to myself out loud. "Marina, you're doing the right thing. You don't have to carry guilt that isn't yours. It was a small moment, almost insignificant to an outsider, but for me, it was liberating. For the first time, I realized that my happiness didn't need to depend on my sister's behavior, that I could set boundaries and take care of what truly mattered: my health, my baby, my husband, and our future. Each deep breath gave me the strength to face what lay ahead, and I realized that my life could be guided by my own conscious choices, not by the manipulations of others. It was a delicate balance, feeling fear and anger, yet still being able to act with clarity. For the first time, I felt that emotional freedom was real, that I didn't need to apologize for being responsible and making decisions that ensured the safety of my family. Renato noticed the change immediately. He had always been my support, but now he realized that something inside me had shifted. I told him about Paula's messages, about the fear, guilt, and despair I felt, and also about the decision I made to no longer give in to provocations. He was silent for a few minutes, and then said he was proud of me, that I had finally recognized my own strength. For the first time, I felt I could fully trust someone to share my fears and strategies with, without feeling judged. Talking to Renato gave me clarity that setting boundaries wasn't selfish, but essential care. For the first time, I felt I could face my sister without drowning in guilt or fear, that my inner strength was enough to protect our family and our future. Shortly after, my mother called me again, saying that Paula was in despair at her house and demanding I intervene. For the first time, I felt I could say no without fear. I told my mother, with a firm voice trembling with emotion, that I wouldn't be responsible for fixing my sister's life, that I wouldn't give in to manipulation, and that my priority was my peace and that of my baby. The decision was painful, because I knew my mother would be hurt. But for the first time, I felt relief. I realized that my life didn't need to be defined by other people's drama, that I could choose my own path and stand firm without guilt. Taking a deep breath brought clarity. Protecting my emotional health wasn't selfish, it was survival. I sat on the living room floor after the call and cried with relief, anger, fear, but also hope. It was the first time I felt there was a way out, that I could get through this crisis without destroying myself. Each conscious decision not to give in, not to react impulsively, was a small victory that strengthened me. For the first time, I realized that overcoming problems isn't about eliminating them, but about learning to deal with them consciously, prioritizing one's own life and mental health. I could love my sister and my family without losing myself, without being held hostage by unfair accusations. For the first time, I felt my peace could exist regardless of Paula's behavior. That same day, Renato and I had a structured discussion about the future. We planned how to handle potential family crises, defining strategies to protect our home, our baby, and our emotional health. For the first time, I felt true hope, even though I still harbored fear and anxiety. I felt strength and clarity. For the first time, I realized that overcoming difficulties consisted of small choices, a series of conscious decisions that allowed me to protect my core, even when everything around me seemed to be falling apart. I was finally taking control of my life, creating a safe and healthy environment where my happiness wouldn't depend on someone else's envy or irresponsibility. For the first time, I felt that emotional freedom was possible, and that my future could be built according to my own choices. In the days that followed, I realized the tension with Paula would continue, but something inside me had changed forever. Before, every call or message from her left my heart racing, paralyzed by fear and guilt. But now I could feel anger, frustration, and sadness without them overpowering me. I began to consciously organize my routine, prioritizing my health, my baby, and Renato, without allowing other people's drama to interfere with my peace. Each decision not to react impulsively or to maintain firm boundaries strengthened me in surprising ways. For the first time, I realized that I didn't need to fix my sister's life to be a good person, that taking care of myself didn't mean being selfish, and that it was possible to love my family without destroying myself emotionally. Taking a deep breath and reflecting before acting became a powerful habit that gave me control and freedom. This clarity, though painful to achieve, made me realize that overcoming obstacles was built gradually, through conscious choices, even in the face of someone who, out of pride and vanity, insisted on placing obstacles in my life. Every day, my confidence grew, and I felt like I was finally learning to separate my happiness from other people's frustration. Renato became even more of my unconditional support. He not only accompanied me physically, but also helped me understand the strength I was discovering within myself. We talked at length about strategies for dealing with Paula without giving in, for protecting our home and our baby, and each conversation reinforced my sense of security and clarity. For the first time, I realized that strength doesn't come from trying to control others, but from taking control of our own emotions and decisions. I learned to separate my life from other people's frustrations, understanding that my sister's responsibility was hers, and that my happiness didn't need to be held hostage to her behavior. This realization brought a profound and unprecedented sense of freedom, a feeling that, finally, my life was in my hands, and that my peace and emotional stability could exist regardless of family crises. My mother gradually began to respect my boundaries. She realized that Paula needed to face the consequences of her own choices, and that pressuring or blaming her wasn't helping at all. This recognition brought relief, but also a quiet sense of personal victory. I understood that overcoming conflict doesn't mean the absence of conflict, but the ability to live with it, without letting it destroy our lives. Every ignored message, every thoughtful response, every imposed limit was a firm step toward my peace. For the first time, I realized that my life could be built on conscious choices, which could protect my marriage, my baby, and my own mental health. The feeling of emotional autonomy was intense, almost physical, and made me realize that I had truly begun to regain control of my own life. Paula continued to provoke me with accusations and angry messages, but now I could read them without feeling guilty or afraid. I took a deep breath, reflected, and consciously decided whether or not to respond. Each day I stood my ground was a silent but profound victory, because I realized that my happiness didn't have to depend on my sister's behavior. I could set clear boundaries and still maintain love and respect without destroying myself. This learning brought quiet pride, a physical sense of inner strength I had never experienced before. For the first time, I felt that emotional resilience could exist even in the face of chaos, that my well-being didn't need to be held hostage by someone who chose to lose themselves in frustration and envy. It was during this period that I realized a complete transformation within myself. I was no longer the person drowning in guilt or hiding from accusations. I was Marina, pregnant, strong, capable of protecting my peace, my marriage, and my baby. I felt fear, anger, and still carried some of the pain, but I also felt strength, hope, and resilience. For the first time, I understood that overcoming profound family crises doesn't mean not feeling pain, but choosing not to be dominated by it, deciding to protect your peace and prioritize your own life and happiness. I was finally ready to move forward, with awareness, confidence, and strength, ready to face any challenge without losing my essence or my emotional security. In the following days, the tension with Paula continued, but I felt something different inside. Before, every phone call, every message from her had left me on high alert, my heart racing, my hands trembling, and I constantly feared that any action could destroy me emotionally. Now I could feel the anger, frustration, and disappointment without being swallowed up by them. I began to organize my days consciously, prioritizing my health, my baby, and Renato, without getting caught up in other people's drama. Each choice not to react impulsively or to maintain firm boundaries was a silent but powerful victory, deeply strengthening me. For the first time, I understood that I didn't need to fix my sister's life to be good or fair, that taking care of myself wasn't selfish, but a necessity. Taking deep breaths, reflecting before acting, and choosing my battles became a daily exercise that gave me control and security. I felt that despite the fear and tension, there was a newfound clarity guiding me. I no longer felt guilty about being responsible or making decisions that would ensure a safe future for my baby and husband. Gradually, I realized that my emotional freedom depended solely on my ability to maintain boundaries and consciously decide how to react, not on Paula's approval or behavior. Renato became even more of a pillar of my being, more than just a companion. He was my mirror of security and validation. In long conversations, we discussed how to deal with Paula without giving in, how to protect our space, our home, and our baby from any manipulation. Each plan and strategy reinforced my sense of control and security. For the first time, I realized that strength didn't come from trying to change someone else, but from taking control of my own emotions and decisions. I learned to separate my choices from the frustrations of others, to understand that the responsibility for my sister's life was hers, and that my happiness didn't need to be held hostage by her actions. This realization brought an unprecedented sense of emotional, almost physical freedom, as if I could finally breathe without feeling the crushing weight of guilt. My mother gradually began to recognize and respect my limits, understanding that pressuring Paula or trying to involve me in her drama wouldn't help at all. This brought relief, but also a quiet sense of victory, because I realized I could move forward without others dictating my choices. I understood that overcoming problems isn't the absence of problems or conflicts, but the ability to face them without letting them destroy your life. Every ignored message, every thoughtful response, every imposed limit was a firm step toward my peace. For the first time, I realized that my life could be built on conscious decisions and that I could protect my marriage, my baby, and my mental health. The sense of emotional autonomy was intense and empowering, a physical and psychological feeling that reassured me that I was truly taking control of my own life. Paula continued to provoke me with accusations and complaints, but now I could read and reflect without feeling guilty or afraid. I took a deep breath, thought before responding, and consciously decided if it was worth it. Each day I stood my ground was a silent but profound victory, because I realized that my happiness didn't depend on her behavior. I could set clear boundaries and still maintain love and respect without destroying myself emotionally. This learning brought a quiet, almost physical pride, an inner strength I had never felt before. For the first time, I realized that emotional resilience could exist even in the face of chaos, and that my well-being didn't need to be held hostage by my sister's envy, pride, or irresponsibility. It was during this period that I realized a complete transformation within myself. I was no longer the person drowning in guilt or hiding from accusations. I was Marina, pregnant, strong, capable of protecting my peace, my marriage, and my baby. I felt fear and anger, but also strength, resilience, and hope. For the first time, I understood that overcoming profound family crises doesn't mean not feeling pain, but choosing not to be dominated by it, deciding to protect your peace and prioritize your own life and happiness. I was finally ready to move forward, with awareness, confidence, and strength, ready to face any challenge without losing my essence or emotional security. In the following days, I realized that all the tension and drama surrounding Paula would continue, but something inside me had changed forever. Before, every call or message from her left me anxious, with my heart racing, my hands trembling, and the feeling that everything could fall apart at any moment. Now I could feel anger, sadness, and frustration, without letting these emotions overwhelm me, without drowning in them. I began to organize my routine consciously, prioritizing my health, my baby, and Renato, without allowing the family drama to define my mood or my decisions. Each choice not to react impulsively or to maintain firm boundaries was a silent but powerful victory that strengthened me deeply. For the first time, I realized that I didn't need to fix my sister's life to be fair or loving, that taking care of myself wasn't selfish, but a necessity for emotional survival. Taking deep breaths, reflecting before acting, and choosing my battles became a daily habit that gave me control and security. I felt fear. I still felt anger, but I also had clarity. For the first time, I understood that my emotional freedom depended solely on my ability to maintain boundaries and consciously decide my actions, not on Paula's approval or behavior. This realization was liberating, almost physical, an intense feeling that my life was finally in my hands. Renato remained my unshakable pillar. He not only supported me physically, but also validated my strength and helped me see that my choices were right. We talked at length about how to deal with Paula without giving in, about protecting our space, our marriage, and our baby, and each conversation reinforced my sense of security and control. For the first time, I realized that strength didn't come from trying to change someone else, but from taking responsibility for my own emotions and actions. I learned to separate my life from the frustration of others, understanding that the responsibility for my sister's life was hers, that my happiness didn't need to be held hostage by her actions, and that my limits were legitimate. This realization brought an unprecedented sense of emotional, almost physical freedom, as if I could finally breathe without carrying the crushing weight of guilt. My mother gradually began to respect my boundaries, realizing that pressuring Paula or involving me in her drama wouldn't help matters. This brought relief and a quiet sense of personal victory, because I realized I could move forward without others dictating my choices. I understood that overcoming challenges isn't the absence of problems or conflicts, but the ability to face them without letting them destroy your life. Every ignored message, every thoughtful response, every imposed limit was a firm step toward my peace. For the first time, I realized that my life could be built on conscious decisions and that I could protect my marriage, my baby, and my mental health. The feeling of emotional autonomy was intense and empowering, almost physical, giving me the certainty that I was taking full control of my life. Paula continued to provoke me with accusations and manipulation, but now I could read without feeling guilty or afraid. I took a deep breath, reflected, and consciously decided whether or not to respond. Each day I stood my ground was a silent, profound victory because I realized that my happiness didn't depend on her behavior. I could set clear boundaries and still maintain love and respect without destroying myself emotionally. This learning brought a quiet, almost physical pride, a sense of inner strength I had never felt before. For the first time, I realized that emotional resilience could exist even in the face of chaos and that my well-being didn't need to be held hostage by my sister's envy, pride, or irresponsibility. Looking back today, I realized that that intense and painful period was a turning point in my life. I learned that overcoming doesn't mean not feeling pain, fear, or anger, but choosing not to be dominated by these feelings, deciding to protect my peace and prioritize my life, my baby, and my marriage. I'm Marina, 32 years old, and I managed to navigate family chaos without emotionally destroying myself, keeping my mental health, my marriage, and my baby safe. I still carry some of the pain, but now I have clarity, strength, resilience, and hope. I know I can move forward, facing any challenge with awareness and courage, and that my happiness will no longer be held hostage by the envy or irresponsibility of others. Overcoming is a daily process, made of conscious choices, and I finally learned that it's possible to win even in the face of the most immediate adversity.